Our next speaker, obviously from the high point of being responsible for Pádraig Clerkin's education, it's all been downhill since then. He's had a remarkable sporting career in that he's managed to make it to the current position that he's in a very unusual way. It wasn't through the county boards, it was through grassroots work at secondary school level. And most importantly, in becoming president of the GAA, he has righted nearly a century of wrong by finally putting a Dubliner back in that position after so long being excluded from it. He is a principal himself, so he has an awful lot of insight into the kind of issues that we have been talking about. Will you please give a warm welcome to the president of the GAA, John Horan.
We are the champions, my friends.
Good evening, and it's quite an honour to be asked to speak to a group of principals, and I suppose I don't really know why Pádraig Clerkin asked me here, because well, all Pádraig Clerkin knows about me, and to talk to a group of people like you who could probably write volumes about the whole subject of sustainable leadership. Just to give you an insight on Pádraig, he was, I won't go too far, GDPR. But anyway, he was easily the most mature young lad in his class. And to be quite honest, I'm no way surprised that he now has a career of his own in a leadership role, and a very successful one at that. And I think he has proven himself both within the school in which he was principal and of your organisation to be excellent at the job of leadership. I suppose in talking here tonight, I kind of was working it out, what am I going to say? And for one that probably never did a leadership degree, diploma, or anything like that, I'm just going to shoot the breeze with some of my own experiences as I went through the GAA and the actual secondary school system. And what has kept me going in both positions, which I think is key to the whole area of sustainable leadership. There is one thing. There's a link between the two, because the skill set of being a school principal is very transferable to be the leader of an organisation like the GAA. And when I look back at moments that influenced me to be where I am today, I suppose one of the first standout moments for me was primary school. And in primary school, my first 2 years were probably polar opposites in terms of experience and outcome. But there were very defining moments on where I am today. And when I reflect now, it gave me an early lesson in terms of the importance of how good relationships were, and in particular, relationships with a teacher can affect your performance. As an educator, you can make or you can break someone. In first class, I was put asleep with half the class as we were considered weak and not worth teaching. Sent home early for fiddling with a bag across 2 main roads with no lollipop man. I felt a lot of black toffee and really hated school and was probably destined to be a loser. Then enter second class, a new teacher, young teacher, no black toffee. He lived on a flat on the road that I lived on and became a god in my life. And suddenly, homework had to be perfect, and that was my own personal decision. There was a huge improvement in my performance, and when they came to segregate us into third class, I managed to get into the A class. It was quite a turnaround to be considered too weak to be taught and to end up principal of the secondary school. But it was due to the positive relationship I had with one particular teacher. This gave me lessons in early life about positive relationships, bringing out the best in everyone. Other key moments in my life were my time as a member of the Irish Red Cross, my membership at the GAA, and being a school principal itself. The one key lesson I feel that threaded all of these was relationships. As a 12-year-old, I got a choice to join the Scouts or the Red Cross. I picked the Red Cross and came away after 20 enjoyable years with 2 great lessons. One on natural justice and the other on volunteerism. I recall being nominated to sit on a committee to review the performance of an employee. And as we worked through the process, we had the advice of a barrister. And in every step we took in the process, he challenged us for our own good. Were we applying the principles of natural justice? In other words, were we being fair and detached in how we were arriving at our decisions? But most particularly, were we being considerate to the other person's rights? Again, if you create a reputation of fairness in your relationships with people, you can go a long way to resolving future problems. The second important lesson I learned was the importance of motivation and volunteerism in people. And this became very relevant in my role as a school principal. Whilst the Red Cross had a ranking structure, the reality was that nobody was getting paid, so you needed to motivate and appreciate people for their time and effort. You always arrived first. You asked no one to do anything you wouldn't. Thank everybody and make sure they got home. I saw a quote recently, and I think it's very appropriate. The role of a boss is to service the needs of your staff. And when you think about education and on the role of a principal of a school, that is very much what you have to do if you want to get the bit extra from your staff and to make your school excellent rather than functionary. In our system, we don't have bonuses or promotions as posts are limiting. I finished up with 2 assistant principal positions and 2 special duty posts in a school of 430 staff. This challenged me to go back to my Red Cross days and what I'd learned from it. And when the principalship came up in 2009 in the school, we'd had a bad experience with the SSE. Morale was low, and I didn't actually apply for the job. My major concern at the time was that I wouldn't delegate and would go under from all the pressure. The post wasn't filled. I was offered it for 6 or 12 months and I declined. I returned that September in an acting capacity, and after a few weeks, changed my mind and applied, and the rest is history. But looking back, being a school principal was the most fulfilling part of my career as a teacher. And one clear thing about leadership. Leadership needs relationships to impact change. And that was my challenge, to get buy-in from the staff to work on change. This relationship involved motivation and delegation. I offered funding for further study, gave leadership roles in different areas to the staff, and spent a lot of time supporting them in their new roles. This engagement involved spending a lot of time out on the floor, moving around the building, and engaging in conversation and expressing appreciation. You also had to have an interest in their personal circumstances and offer support when pressure came on. There were times you felt you were being taken advantage of, but you soaked it up for the overall good. And then, as I set to leave for the GAA presidency, 2 new assistant principal roles arrived in the school and 4 special duties positions. I also felt that the WSE would catch me, because when I was elected president, every newspaper carried it that I was a school principal. And it duly did arrive, but glad to say, thanks to the work of the staff, that actually went well. Spirit is a word I've heard numerous managers talk about when talking about getting the best out of their team. And similarly, it goes with your staff. And one area which I worked on was the environment in which they were working. And with the support of the board, we spent money on upgrading the school, cutting down hedges at the front of the school, covering tiles that were 50-year-olds with a bright marmoleum, refurbishing the staff toilets, and managed to sneak a new staff room into a school extension. This, over a number of years, actually made the staff feel appreciated for their work. The GAA is synonymous with sport, but in reality, it's all about people. Whether a coach of young players striving for success, or as an administrator trying to guide the organisation forward, the role is the same, bringing the best out of people by investing time in them and supporting them and encouraging them to be the best they can be. When you create an environment for people to flourish, anything is possible. That applies to life as well as sport. Positive relationships at critical junctures play played a crucial role in shaping the person I am today. The campaign to get elected GAA president proved challenging. As Anton had said, no native Dublin person in 97 years. The then incumbent, Den McCarthy, spent his time dodging bullets, as that was the Ireland of the time. The only bullets I'm dodging are from Joe Brolly, and he's capable of throwing the odd grenade as well. But key to keeping Joe at bay is to have a good relationship with him, as possible as you can. The bad news for any of you from Mayo also is that when Den McCarthy was president, he gave all 3 All-Ireland football titles to Dublin. So 6 rather than 5 could well be the target over the next couple of years. But as the campaign started, the 4 other candidates were all highlighting Dublin had everything and you couldn't give them this as well. Sean Kelly, a former president, once said, there's politics and then there's GAA politics. And key to running the campaign was to creating a group of people close to me with whom I had a good relationship and relying on their relationships with other people. They were able to provide me with different lines of interest that existed in each county and of course feedback on how other candidates were questioned and answered when I went to visit the counties. This allowed us to work out where the votes were really going, and hence on the night of the election we predicted the votes of the 5 candidates to a very close number, including having 2 of them exactly correct. Little did I think I would revert to those relationships in a way to solicit support of that nature again until the Lee Miller saga blew up. But yet again, the relationships proved valuable in getting the outcome I wanted. Politicians were exerting incredible pressure in the background, including Shane Ross ringing me before I got out of bed on a Sunday morning, asking me, sort it out before I have a press conference on Wednesday, if you don't mind. But anyway, some individuals in the background were seeking legal advice to stop the process. But again, having the relationships with people on the ground, bringing them along with you, allowed us to end up with the right result. I always say human science, that is, the dealing with people, is the most difficult science of all, due to the differing personalities you meet. And managing teams certainly upskilled me in that area. From Stephen Cluxton to Dermot Connolly to Philly McMahon, all very different characters. The experience I gained as a school principal has given me the skill set that is in my present role, proved invaluable. Chairing the board looking to purchase Clondiff College, total comparison to putting the extension on the school. Dealing with child safeguarding issues, we all did it as principals and do it every day. Discussing the 65 million accounts of the GAA with an auditor, nothing more or more different than what you're doing in the school, except just on a bigger scale with more entries in the system. As well as relationships being important, sustainable leadership, your own well-being is also a factor. I suffer type 2 diabetes, which I attribute to some extent to my role as a deputy principal, and being busy at the job, skipped eating properly, not taking the lunch break, and it eventually caught up on me. Having stepped out of the role of principal 12 months ago, I've come to realise you're actually caught in a bubble where you're doing the job and don't fully appreciate the pressure that goes with the job. One of my best friends always felt I really took the job in my stride, but now realises there were pressures that weren't obvious. Never had particularly high blood pressure, but in the last year, twice it's been taken and has come up perfect. On one of those occasions, I was in the middle of dealing with the Lee Miller controversy. I know, looking back, I regularly caught a cold coming up to mid-term break or Christmas, and it was probably just my body winding down as the break was coming. When you arrive at the start of the day in a school, your energy levels have to be so high because parents, pupils, and teachers will draw on you for the whole day. I learned one thing, and it has also been a factor in the role of president. Don't deal with difficult situations at the end of the day, or certainly on a Friday afternoon if it can be avoided. Leave it till the next day, till you're fresh and you have the energy to deal with it. Whilst the role of president is high profile, the pressures pale in comparison to those a principal will encounter. Filing a complaint to TUSLA, having mulled over the report you've received, or contacting a parent asking them to come in and discuss with you the mental health of their son, and recommending that he engage a PA at a house. That's pressure. As president of the GA, can I thank each and every one of you for the work your school do in promoting our games. As a person who spent a lifetime running teams, I understand all that is involved. Getting teachers to volunteer their time, covering for teachers, spending scarce school funding on the games, but the outcome is life-lasting on students, and many of them in later life reflect back to the day they played in the school's final as being one of the highlights in their school memories. I would also like to thank those of you who serve on committees that organise those games for us. Last Monday, we had the Chief Operations Officer of Facebook in Croke Park announcing 1,000 jobs. And one of the main reasons she said she picked Ireland was we have a well-educated young workforce. Rightly, take the credit for that as leaders of our primary schools. But do one thing, look after yourselves in what is a very difficult and challenging job. Gura Mahuguf.
Hang on for a tick, John. I just want to ask you one or two things before you went. The way you talk about being principal, it's very definitely in the past tense. You're not going back.
No, actually, when I was elected president, I knew I was going on a 3-year secondment. It was very clear in my head that I was going back. But I'd have to say that the role of principal has changed somewhat, and I feel, and Pádraig alluded to, the amount of initiatives I feel that are being loaded down on principals running schools has gone somewhat out of control. And I don't think you get the supports, I don't think you get the opportunities to do the training and whatever. And I just made up my mind in the last 2 months that now, having spoken to the girl that stepped up to replace me and listened to what she's enduring in the last 12 months, that no, I ain't going back. But having said that, and he's not a man of my political persuasion at all, but I'm glad to see that the new Minister for Education, when he took up office, said we need to take the foot off the pedal in terms of initiatives we're putting on.
Well, as you know, he'll be with us tomorrow morning, so we'll be able to talk about that in
He's a good guy, he actually
detail.
knows the job.
You mentioned, obviously, some of the pressures, and we've talked about some of them, but some of the pressures that are on principals are on issues like things like child protection and all the regulations and bureaucracy that's attendant upon that. Is that the same in the GAA? Do you find a pressure on things like volunteerism through all of the checking and vetting that now has to be done? Is it difficult to get people to volunteer because of that kind of pressure? Or is it having any effect?
Yeah, no, it is a factor. Like, I mean, you know, Garda vetting is one thing, but you have to get separate Garda vetting then when you get involved in a sports organisation. That's it. The whole GDPR, the whole contacting of children, and society has changed, and parents are less somewhat appreciative and a little bit more critical of volunteers and how they run teams in terms of they'd be more expressive if Johnny's not getting his game and as to why. Whereas I'd say when I was looking after Pádraig, his dad was probably only glad that I was gone off and got him out of the way.
Was he any use as a sportsman, out of curiosity?
You can see by his height he was
He was
some
handy under a high
fullback. He
ball.
was some fullback.
Final thing then, of course, I have to ask is the statistical likelihood of the 5 in a row. You're fairly positive towards it?
It's always a pleasure to give an All-Ireland trophy to your own county. So
I can
get to
imagine
do it
it's
again.
something else. John Horan, folks, thank you very much, John.
Thank you.